And we're back. You have missed nothing.
So, here's how we're going to do this. Right? You guys have introduced yourselves already.
Yes.
But what we don't know is we don't know, what your purpose was for going to Kidscreen. What projects were you bringing to Kidscreen?
Okay, so each person can tell me.
Yeah, so each of you tell us what was your mission.
Starting here. Okay. For me, it was, I have 3 IPs currently working on. I have 1 piece for them. This is one of the things that you do when you go to Kidscreen or any of these markets. You try to do your IPs as like little 1 sheets. You do like pitches. It's got like main image, what's your target age group, what it's about on the back. That's something to get people like interested in. It's like a miniature condensed version of your pitch Bible. So for me, it was to go and see if anyone's interested in doing development or co-production. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Just looking to see where best my IP would fit with which company, because different companies they are looking for different things. So yeah.
For me, I wasn't as prepared as her. I didn't have my sheets, but I had my tablet, so what I do just walk around and like.
He's environmentally friendly.
Yes. Exactly, Go to the trees.
Save the trees.
So yeah, I basically had my tablet and I showed them what I was working on, and I didn't have any business cards either, so I had to be collecting business cards, but it worked out because I had more interaction with the person. Like, can I get your business card? Let me email you. Don't make them stress about emailing me. No problem. So I went there basically to look for same thing as Curto. Okay. Yeah, just to look for people who are interested in my project. I'm working on a project called Enter Zion. It's an animated show as well as a video game and a webcomic. So I was looking for people who would be willing to invest as well as co-produce. I already had a couple of people interested in the project that are willing to work in the production side, and people said, "Oh, see, this is why the past helps the future." So I was just looking around for who was interested in terms of like broadcasters and just get a feel of the space, like what's interesting now, what's hot now in terms of animation, stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Okay, so other than producing Agri, was that last year, the year before? When was that?
It was the year before.
Time flies when you go. So other than producing Agri was the most practical experience I had with animation. So I'd written for animation before, but the thing with being a writer is it really means you're sitting down in your living room, bedroom, whatever, you write something and then it's you and it one and nobody sees it. So it doesn't really give you practical experience. So for me, the main thing I wanted from Kidscreen was to get a proper understanding of the industry, how it works, how to meet people, the kinds of people that you would meet at these things. So I really wanted to build network. I wanted to increase knowledge and all of that. Yes, I did the thing of walking with the one-pagers, and then I saw the other one-pagers, and I didn't want to show anybody But then I came back and I realized, oh, this is a great test market, just even from how people look at the one-pagers to see how people respond to a character and say, okay, I think I need to go back on the board with that kind of thing. So yeah, I really went to learn and have an understanding, and it was not at all what I expected, but we'll talk about that some more later. Yeah, that means it's your turn.
Pretty much the same thing these guys spoke about. For me, it was mainly, again, networking, and I've done a couple characters for.
And now you can stand and really show the shirt, because that's what you went to do at Kidscreen, to show people your shirt.
Kidscreen. Area. No, I did this shirt. This was some of my characters for some series that I worked on. This was Red Locks, this one is for Graveyard Shift, and this one is Lab Rats from Kingston, as some of you guys will remember it. Yeah, that's some of it. But actually, I actually had about 5 IPs, but I concentrated on just showing 2, because you really don't have much time to talk to people about. You can't bombard with all 5, and you only have like 15 minutes sometimes just to talk to people, 15, 20 minutes at most. I had a couple meetings, which went favorably. I mean, I think I'm quite confident, keeping my fingers crossed, that I should be getting some calls where that is concerned. Because one of the things I noticed, or one of the things that I realized is that if they're not interested in what you have to show them, they will tell you. They're not going to just say, oh, this is nice, I'll just keep it that way. No. They will just say, well, this is not what we're looking for, probably in the future you could whatever. And they won't even take your
They
idea.
will not take it. They're not interested.
So 3 of the meetings I had actually, they expressed some interest in what I had, and they took the material and exchanged information and so on, and they will get back to me on it, because they have to. The decision is not there, and then they're going to have to speak with their team and do research and so on to see if there's anything similar to what you have to show them, anything similar to your show in their pipeline as well, because they don't like doing similar shows or shows that are exact. So, but the networking was great, and that's something very important, because these executives, you can't get to them on a normal basis. I mean, I think they literally stay away from people sometimes. No, because I mean, every hour of the day, people are trying to sell them something or sell them a show and so on. So they're very closed off, and I mean, if you can get somebody to say, oh, look at this guy's stuff, or you meet them at these conferences and you develop a relationship, it goes so much better, Because I actually met there are 2 people I met at MIPCOM in October, and I was able to meet with them again at Kidscreen and so on. And it was like we were friends now, kind of like, hi, how are you doing? What you have? And even though I didn't have a scheduled meeting with them, I was able to actually spend some time and talk about what I have. So, so that's how it is.
Okay, so I went to Kidscreen, honestly not being sure why I was going. I started the BOSS program that many of us are on because I was a visual artist and doing animation and video as an art output for a long time. And BOSS came up and it presented a challenge, and I'd always wanted to work on shorts. So, I'd really fallen in love with a lot of animated shorts. And so when we went to MIPCOM, which I think I spoke about last year at JANN, that was also an eye-opener, as George said, where there was interest in the short, but what people were asking me was, can you make this into a series? And so with that challenge in mind, Kidscreen presented that kind of challenge as well, that platform where, okay, I will work on this to go to Kidscreen. And even though the IP is meant for young adults and teens, I thought, well, let's see where it fits into the child content space, children's content space. And so I went with the IP and the one-page flyer that we all carried along, and except Corey, except Corey. But, and so I found my kind of goal as I was there, which really was just to absorb and learn about the animation landscape, and also to understand how do you get something produced, and also who is interested in what I'm doing, where does it fit within children's content. So that was my goal.
Okay, great. So all of you had different reasons for being here. So definitely sounds like we'll be able to get different perspectives. How many of you went to Kidscreen for the first time? So was it your first? Okay, so 4 of you. Birthday,
Back in 2008.
So, alright, so here's what I'll leave Curtis for last since she has more experience at Kidscreen, but I want to know, like, what was Kidscreen like for you guys being brand new to Kidscreen? Like, I think Tanya was saying it wasn't at all what you were expecting. You know, like, how much so was it, you know, not what you're expecting? How long did it take you to adjust? What was the most, you know, remarkable thing you noticed about the experience?
I was comparing it a lot to MIPCOM because we went to MIPCOM last year in France, and it was a lot more condensed, it was a lot smaller, more intimate compared to that. So you had an advantage where you felt more comfortable talking to people, right? It wasn't a bag of people rushing to go, you know, people rushing with their bags, you can't talk to anybody, right? So it was more intimate, and how the meetings were set up. Basically, you have like a 30 minutes with, right? That's basically having a talk with one of the broadcasters, like let's say Netflix or Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. They sit down and they legit tell you what they're looking for. Like they're like, this is what we want, right? This is what we're looking for. This is what we have, right? And they tell you to do your research on their whole thing because they don't want you to come with a show, as George says, that's the same as what they already have out there. So they're like, oh, we already have a story about this, right? They're not gonna be interested. So they really sit down and tell you exactly what they're looking for. And I really appreciated that as a difference from VidCom compared to here is that they really just tell you, all right, oh, we're looking for ages this to this, looking for these kind of shows, you know, after comedy, with kids' voices in it, stuff like that. So you're like, okay, all right, yes, yes. You write down your notes and you make sure you have everything. So it was very informative where that was concerned. As it relates to the space in general, as it was a very small space, so you'd see the same people. We had the booth, right?
Small compared to me.
Yeah, compared to me. Yeah. Let me just say that because with MIPCOM it was 13,000.
Yeah.
And it was like 6 floors, and they had a whole, the whole Bay Area or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
the palais.
Yeah, the palais. So that was
Massive.
massive. But this one, as I said, was more condensed. What I learned a lot from it is that you tend to be very afraid to pitch what you have because there's so many other things out there that look better. Right? Like they're like stuff that you're like, damn, okay, I need to work on my stuff, right? But it helped open your eyes to see, all right, how can I improve what I'm doing? Like how can I improve my IP that I'm working on? And the people that we met up with, because we met up with a couple of people that gave us information on, you know, what to do, what not to do, what to put in the pitches, you know, what to lead with story, because when you're doing an IP or a story, you need to push characters. And they like characters. They like to show what makes this person different. What makes this person different from the rest of the roster that you have in this whole IP, right? What makes it different from any other show out there, and what makes it similar to other shows. Because they want to kind of understand, like, oh, it's kind of like this, or, you know, it's kind of like this show, or but it has this twist, or something like that. You know, just to give them a sense of understanding. So it was a big learning process for me. Yeah, that's a word.
For me, I think the thing I want to know most is what they put in the water at Kidscreen. The people there and every first-time attendee I spoke to commented on how friendly people were. They are I think we should gauge what we mean when we say about the networking opportunities. There are formal networking possibilities where you can, they actually have sessions where you can get to network with these execs. However, what happens is, so breakfast takes place in a massive room and there are tables there. You go in and you sit down and you talk to whomever is there. Now, who you talk to might be head of kids at ABC. You don't know who you're talking to when you're sitting there unless you had, which is, note to self, stock network execs in advance, learn what they look like, so then you can pick the table you sit at. Even me, I hadn't done any of that. But you can just do this. You can just be standing in the line. I was standing in the line waiting to go see France TV, and we begin talking with this gentleman, and then later I realized his dad created one of the animations that I thought was the coolest things ever done. I mean, damn, it's kind of a good thing I didn't know before, because I would have fangirled all all the way in embarrassed Jamaica. It would have been, but the thing is, there are formal networking opportunities, such as when they have drinks and cocktails and that, and then get your game face on. If you are not a networker and you're going with somebody else, I mean, whether they're in your company or they're just your friend, try and team up with somebody else who you know can ease you into the company.
Yep.
I get a feeling that's what happened there.
Oh, man.
Let's team up with somebody else who, you know, it is okay talking to people.
Sure.
And it's amazing really how friendly they can be and how engaging, and you know, so you go with your game face on, and that is not what I had anticipated at all. Because I've been to different kinds of trade fairs before, and people are busy and they are going about their business, and ain't nobody got time for you, right? But this friendly air was really, really great. I don't know what's in the water. Maybe it wasn't Meatless Monday's thing.
It's a type of meeting because they had cocktails with, coffee with. It was very small spaces, small rooms. You know, you spoke with like, you know, there's 25 people in a room, so everybody just, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, so it was. That too.
Yeah, so same thing Tanya said.
Okay, that's what Tanya said.
Such way with
I don't know.
words.
I don't remember what the question. What was the question again?
The question was that, you know, being new to Kidscreen, you know, what was that experience like? Like, how did it hit you? I'm sure you didn't walk in like, hey, I'm George. I know what I'm doing.
I mean, if you got something like that, you are like a small pebble in a huge pond. I mean, when you look at the talent and the, like when you go through the brochures and you see the companies there and you see the IPs or you know, the shows. I mean, for those people, I mean, we keep saying IPs, like intellectual property, which is, you know, the creations that you do and so on. So, I mean, I went through magazines and I looked at, and have to be constantly looking at my stuff, looking at their stuff and saying, geez, where do I fit in all of this and so on. So, you know, you kind of compare yourself and you try your best to see, okay, how can I improve on my IPs and you know, get in the rat race. Again, like what Corey said, I was kind of comparing it to MIPCOM, seeing that MIPCOM was the first animation conference I went to. And as I said, MIPCOM was like huge. It was a lot of people. Kidscreen, I liked it because again, it was condensed and it was more intimate as well. And then again, it felt a little different because I was like seeing some people that I saw at MIPCOM, so I didn't feel as out in the grass as when I was at MIPCOM. And then you kind of get the MIPCOM experience kind of prepared you for Kidscreen. So I mean, it's really great going to these conferences. So I mean, each time, I mean, I've been on to two now. I mean, and I feel even more confident now going to a third. Because I've learned a lot. Each time I go, I learned something more on how to conduct yourself, how to approach people. And I mean, I tell you, the breakfast sitting, it was like 10 chairs to a table or something like that. And they say, you just go and you sit at the table. 6 people might be there and say, hi, how are you doing? Can I sit here? And they say, sure, no problem, there's an empty space. And Tanya, I mean, Tanya is a pro. I mean, she just sits at the table and it's like, before you know it, there's a raging conversation going on. And you're looking at like, So I kind of like hitch on to her a couple times and sat at her table. You know, but I mean, there's not been experience, but experience. I mean, it really makes a difference going to these conferences.
Yeah, I guess I'll join on to that and say yes. And the thing is, each conference is different. It has its particular kind of ecosystem and who goes, which is probably why you find that some are friendlier and some are a little bit sharper. For me, Tanya spoke about there being a formal space. So you could go to, let's say, we went to 30 minutes with BBC, which is a formalized space. So if you're not good at networking, as it seems to be a skill that some of us don't have, is, you can just line up, go to your session, and the BBC acquisitions head would make time. Say, now is your time, I'd like to meet you, here's your business card. So it's a good space for, they have opportunities for you to engage, which is a difference with MIPCOM, where the opportunity for engagement looks different. So at MIPCOM, there's a lot of booths where you can walk up and you can present your things. The thing about Kidscreen that I think you have to be wary of is because a lot of it is so informal and kind of conversational, you have to be a lot more prepared, I feel, with your intellectual property and your pitch and your understanding of it, because it should be natural conversation. Whereas I felt like at other markets like MIPCOM, you could really rely, as I did, on like your pitch Bible, etc. But I think at Kidscreen, it's a little bit of a trick. It's informal, but you really have to know what you're saying and selling.
You have to be a good storyteller. That's why, Good to have her on side.
So we just collect Tanya.
Because as you say, you have to weave it into the conversation. It's something where, because I'm comparing, MIPCOM is kind of like 2 shots of coffee. You kind of just rushing around. You have your pitches, you give somebody one thing, they're like, okay, great, I'm going to look at that. Get a business card and that's it. With Kidscreen, it's more like a sip of tea on the porch, It's kind of like you're just sitting on like, oh, how are you doing? You're telling the story, you make sure you tell it properly, and you have all the main points. And people, oh, that's great, and they show you their thing, and you have time to actually talk about your thing and feel comfortable doing it. So you have to make sure you know your stuff, right? And at the same time, you have to know. That's the thing. When I was going, my target was more teens, right? And a lot of people are mainly looking for younger age groups or younger content. But I just tried to single out the people that were interested in my thing, especially people like Netflix who are looking for teen content. And I think BBC as well was looking for that. So I just stuck to those broadcasters, because for my goal it was to look for broadcasters who invest in the project I'm doing, because most of the stuff I've developed, I feel like, I just need money to just move forward, right? That's what I need right now. But it's really just a matter of understanding who to target. It's very important. You need to know who will be really interested in what I'm doing, and kind of understand what the story is, who the story is targeting, and who you want to be with in terms of like a partner. Right? Like you want to understand, like, all right, BBC has this kind of content, you don't want to go with them. Netflix has this kind of content. So you need to understand everything about who you want to work with before you just go to anybody and say, hey, I want to go on this, but they do live film, they do the animation, so you're wasting them time, So yeah.
Correct. You made some Kidscreen before.
Yes, so I'm the Kidscreen veteran.
Right. So what I want to hear from you now is, of course, what was the experience like, but also, did you notice any differences? What were those differences, and how did it affect your mission?
Okay. First time I went, it was just this kind of deer in the headlights, fish out of water. Oh my God, what am I doing here? I'm a massive introvert. I don't like the kind of fake connections with people. Like, I like to make genuine connections with people. So it's harder for me to just walk up to a random person and be like, hey, hi. This is why you partner with someone like.
So note to say, note to YEDAI, always bring Tanya.
Yeah. So we've got Tanya and.
I'll actually bring up something about hanging out with Tanya later. Yeah. So the first time.
Stays at Kidscreen.
Yes. So the first time, I think there was this a lot of pressure for us to pitch, or for me to pitch. And I just felt like really unprepared. And at Kidscreen there is this, there are these pitch sessions, and you literally have 8 minutes to pitch to someone. And how you get into the pitch session is when you sign up, if you sign up early enough, you get into a lottery, and you basically pick the people you want to pitch to, and they'll run the lottery and they'll let you know which one of the people, which one of the slots you've gotten. If that doesn't happen, then you can stand in a line. So if somebody doesn't show up for their slot, then if you're next in line, you can choose to take that slot if it's someone you want to pitch to, or you can choose to let another person probably take that slot if it's something that might be more suitable to them. When I went the first time, I got to pitch to Jackie Edwards from BBC, and all of this stress and pressure that everything had just come down. So it's kind of like, you have to pitch, you have to hit these things, and it's like you have to practice your pitch. You have to hit this first and do this and then that. And it's like when I went to pitch to her, I just did it, and it was just like me going, okay, yeah, this is my IP. I know it better than anybody else. I just spoke. And the trick was to not take up the whole 8 minutes, because you need to have the person actually respond to you. She wasn't looking for what I had, but I wanted the experience of what it was like to pitch to someone. And having that experience, I was like, okay, so it's not as bad as everyone was making it seem. So coming to Kidscreen now, the second time, I was more prepared and more focused as to what I wanted to do. The 30 minutes with sessions are like a gold mine. If you want to know who to pitch to, those are the sessions that you want to go to. So I went to Disney, Netflix, Nickelodeon, Sony. I'm trying to remember this. There's another.
You're an agent. Don't you need an agent?
Yeah, we can find that out when
Yeah, so like for example, like with alright, so Sony will not take anything unless it's a franchise. They only want franchise things. Disney would love to see any IP that you have, as long as you have an agent that's registered in California.
Mm-hmm.
So
otherwise,
exactly.
go on.
So
It's
one of those things,
possible.
knowing,
It is possible.
knowing that information is vital before you decide to go, oh my God, I want to pitch to Disney, because Disney is basically going to go, I don't want to see anything from you unless you have an agent representing you. But nothing. They don't want to see, they're like, we don't take unsolicited pitches. So that's one of the things I learned. So the 30 minutes with sessions were great. The cocktails with sessions are even better, because once you find out who is kind of looking for something, like close to what you have, you go to these very intimate cocktails with sessions.
There's free wine.
There's free
Alcohol.
wine.
So
They made sure to give you a lot of alcohol.
no food,
No food.
just alcohol.
You speak freely.
They knew what they were doing.
They give you like the biggest wine glass possible, and they're very, very generous.
They're very generous. Very.
So you're standing there, this wine
I was
glass.
surprised.
So
This guy just like, I'm like, whoa.
It's like,
Alright.
yeah, so you go in there, you get a chance to speak to these different representatives, different heads of the various arms of the company. And so they let you know, they're like, oh, if you're looking for development or you're in early development, then contact this person. The person may or may not be in the room, so you could go over to the next table and talk to that person. And then once you're done talking to everyone, are awkwardly standing there with this large wine glass that you can't leave the room with. So, and then the thing is that there's a line outside with people waiting to come in if you come out. So now you're like pressured to go,
You're just joking, man.
and they just walk out like, yeah, I just did that. But yeah, the other thing also was the conferences. The conferences are a great place to get like information on just trends, different things happening in the animation industry. So for me, this time I was a lot more prepared. I knew what I was going to do. I knew I was going to hit the 30 minutes with the cocktail sessions and do the conferences. I had about 2 meetings. And again, it's that thing of, I didn't stress myself for not having very many meetings, because you get to meet people as you're there. You run into somebody, like Tanya said, you have the breakfast, you're sitting down at the table, next thing you know, you have an informal meeting with someone. So for me, it's don't stress about pitching to people who are not looking for things that not looking for what you have. So it doesn't really make sense. If you find someone that is looking for what you have, then push for that. I will say, the thing I want to say with Tanya, it was interesting. There's not a lot of black people there.
Oh, right.
And there's
Yeah.
very
ghetto.
yes, so not a lot of black women. So I remember myself, Tanya, and who else? Sharon. Three of us standing up in a corner of one of these cocktail rooms, and people came up to talk to us.
Yeah.
Like we were one of the.
They were shining.
Yeah, like everyone wanted to know who these three girls were. Like, where these black women standing here? They must be
Having a good time.
exactly like important. And people would come up to us and go, so, and I was like, we were like, this is what we need to do all the time. We need to come into the room and have people talk to us. We're not going to them. They come to us. So that was interesting.
So we stand in groups?
Company
Let me ask you guys
Yeah,
a
the
general-
good thing works.
Let me ask you guys a general question, right? So, like each either first one, you can jump in if you have an experience with the app, right? Kidscreen has an app. How many of you utilize the app
I didn't
and
use it.
found it useful? You say you didn't use it.
In terms of the
Like getting meetings or just gathering information.
Oh.
No, I used the app for keeping track of what was happening. In terms of the setting up meetings and stuff, one of the things is Kidscreen has a lot of service providers who are always looking for studios and people to pitch their work to. So I got some of the meetings through the app where people from there, but none of the people who I emailed through the app responded, and were later advised your studio execs and whatever are not likely to do it through that app. But in terms of it wasn't the most useful that way. But in terms of having an on-the-go, up-to-date thing, as well as if you are tech-friendly, which I'm not the tech-friendliest person, it will, if you have put something on your agenda, right, it will do an alert and say 15 minutes before such and such, you should be joining the line now. Or it will send something and say, did you want to do a pitch with such and such but didn't get in? It's time to go join the line and see if you can get it. So it wasn't useless. There's a use to downloading it to keep on track like that.
Yeah, well, I used it to, track and stalk people.
Oh, so you're that
There's
person.
also very good for that.
In terms of the pictures of all the execs and the people who are coming there or there.
Yeah.
So I like the companies that I was interested in pitching to. I looked through and I saw who was there, who was in charge of acquisitions and so on. And I would send them an email through the app to request meetings and so on. I actually got 2 meetings out of doing it that way. And as a matter of fact, it would have been 3, but one person said that their agenda was full, but we'll try and meet up somewhere along the line and so on. So it worked for me. As I said, it's really great. Okay? The pictures are there, so you know these people. You see them and you kind of look out for them while on the floor and so on. So
Yeah.
it was useful.
I use it to remember who I met, because it's like you get so many business cards, you don't remember the faces. It's like, okay, who is this person again? So you look up the name on the system.
Yeah.
You're like, that person with the bald head, all right. And so it helped in that way, because you have so many business cards at the end of the day. It's just like you don't remember what conversation. And once you see the face, you're like, okay, we spoke about that. And once you put that in the email, oh, we met at so and so, and this booth we spoke about that.
And interestingly enough, I was in my boss program the other day, and you guys probably learned it as well from Justine. Yeah, but especially for the Japanese, you don't write.
Don't write.
Oh, yeah.
In front of them at least.
It's just
Actually, with trying to get meetings and so on, one of the things I had used was, the name, saying that you're from Jamaica or just the name Jamaica is good currency.
Jumping into my question.
Sorry. It's good currency.
Perfect.
All the meetings are people who have met somewhere along there, and you tell them, okay, I'm from Jamaica. It's like, oh wow, you're Jamaican? One of the first things, they want to come to Jamaica.
that's always
if they haven't been to Jamaica, they want, it's on the bucket list, they want to come to Jamaica, and it's great that Jamaicans are here and so on. So it's,
Robert, you invited them for next year?
the currency, the word, the name
Yeah.
Jamaica is good currency. Because actually my intro with the letters to the execs and so on, I said Jamaicans, what was it again? Jamaicans can animate also. Right? So I use that as an intro
Okay.
Jamaicans can do more than just track and field and so on. We animate also. Something like that.
Okay. Well, let me just since you get into that interesting, I want to answer the rest of you. One, did you get any meetings? As in, did all of you get any meetings? And what do you feel like the response was to hearing that Jamaicans were at Kidscreen?
I thought there was general interest, I would say. There was not necessarily a lot of knowledge about such. I mean, I remember somebody had reached out. We ended up not having the meeting, but somebody would reach out to me about a meeting. And I said, okay, meet me at the Jamaica booth. And I was like, okay, I remember where that is. So there's clearly a bit of a recognition. And the fact that Jamaica has had a booth a couple times was also useful in terms of getting the country brand recognition. And, I mean, there is the music recognition, and there's a sense that people assume a level of cool if you are Jamaican. So there is definitely that. I didn't get a sense of overwhelming, but there was interest. People say, where are you from? It's like, Jamaica. I was like, oh, cool. It's not like you say, I'm from, I don't know. I'm someplace that people don't think about. So, yeah.
Or like if you say, I'm from Grenada. Oh, where's that? You don't get that. From you say Jamaica,
Although they might not know where it is, but they will have.
they know of it.
I have very informal meetings. Like, as I said, I didn't set up meetings through the system.
Right.
I met people there and we ended up saying, let's talk. That's all when I went out.
So here's one big
Sorry, can I do a thing on it's on the back of meetings, and but we spoke about having one pages, etc. And it's critical to have, whether you have it digitally or you have it physically, because a lot of people, I didn't see them walking around with actual one pages. They had their iPads or their small computers, and people in the line and back out your screen and show people. So you can choose the way you want to go. But one of the things I remember. The consultant with Boss Christine, she was like, when I showed her my one page and she looked at it back, she was like, oh, that's a lot of information. But I'm like, oh, it looks like all the other one pages I had looked at, which is all the other ones I'd seen that we've created locally. And I thought, but it's just 4 paragraphs. How can it be too much information?
Right.
And then, no, because I mean, it condensed it. It's like, it's not a lot of information. And then by Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm at table and there's a Canadian gentleman having breakfast and he's like, I'm sorry, I can't really talk. He's been there from Sunday. He's been in back-to-back meetings from Sunday. Half of the people start losing their voice by Tuesday evening because they've been chatting that much, right? And so then you talk to somebody, I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm so tired. I've been having 50 meetings a day. When you realize that people are scheduling, it's like the service providers and a lot of the exec, they are scheduling 30 to 50 meetings, 50-minute meetings a day from Sunday through to Wednesday. Crazy. It means then that when they're looking at your one-pager, that information at the back, especially if you're targeting Kidscreen, it needs to be condensed and it needs to be short, right? Because I don't have the mental bandwidth to be consuming a lot of information. Not to mention all the liquor that is running around. Right? So you do need, it's an important thing for your meeting, and or to just this thing where Coretta is saying she goes into a pitch and she knows her information so she can pitch it. Like I said, I had no experience here. First time I go into a cocktails with session, I think it was with BBC, and I think I'd been into one other one. There'd been, a little more formal, a little more standoffish, and the BBC guy goes, okay, so what do you have to tell me? I was like, shit, okay, I need to pitch it right now. I was like, okay, so I have this fantasy, da-da-da-da. The thing is, go knowing your IP.
Yeah.
So if you run into somebody or you're talking to them casually, you know, this is not going to be your 5-minute, 10-minute pitch. It's just that you know the core of your thing, the tent pole that holds it up, that you can say to somebody casually or otherwise, this is what the story is about, this is why you're interested. And this is, that going to things like Kidscreen, a lot of it is about building relationships, right? Something might not come out of this meeting you have this year, but next year when you go, or somebody else goes, and one of the great things that I saw happening with this group, and I'm sure will love it, is that I have something, and it's not what you're looking for. Oh no, there's another member in our contingent, you know.
They're doing 3 you
yeah,
know?
so you can share, and he's like, oh no, you're not looking for me? All right, there's another one over there. This is what you should look at. So, you know, knowing your stuff, it's very important. I think I've talked too much now.
I think I'm gonna add something to the meeting just to go for even more. But I think strategy is something that I learned is extremely crucial. And not necessarily, you don't have to go into any kind of hard sell or any kind of massive anxiety about it. But if you know that, for example, you're doing a specific type of show that's a niche, which is likely to happen, it's better to spend the time learning who is interested in what you are likely to offer. So, for example, what I've learned is that France might be my main market, and therefore learn who is the main producer, the main distributor, and then therefore understanding that, okay, if I target that distributor, then they'll give me some information and I'll be able to go off on that, etc. So it's really having an understanding of what you are doing when you come up with your properties and where to target. And really not stressing about how many meetings. It's the quality of the meeting and the interpersonal relationships, the conversation that you're able to have.
Yeah, good point. Because like you said, you might not get a meeting that lands a deal, but the meeting might give you insight into something that will help you later down the road, which is always important. How important were the parties? Did you guys?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the networking is, that's where a lot of the networking happens.
Yeah.
There's some cool Irish people.
And some people never invite other people to them Irish parties.
Yo, don't come with that.
I'm sure what they say, right? You can't talk with that.
Yeah, you can. Trust me. And you just keep going. You know, they'll just keep going. The parties are very important because, as I say, it's such a relaxed space to just talk. You just talk about what you do. You just talk about the things you're doing, and you could talk about your industry in Jamaica. Because when I spoke to these Irish people, we were just talking about love for anime and love for 2D animation and stuff like that. We were just having a good conversation. I just ended up going to an Irish party, and their whole group of people were celebrating how they've improved animation in where they are in such a small space. And it was very inspiring because it's just like, this is where Jamaica needs to be. This is where we need to reach. Where it's like that togetherness, right? Like that sense of, we're here working together and we're improving and we're putting things out there, you know? So seeing that made me realize that there is hope, you know? Like, especially because we have such a powerful culture and have such a strong culture out there. We need to drive that in our stories because people are looking for that. It's something different. It's something that's never been seen really in animation that hard, where Jamaican culture is being pushed. And not just Jamaican culture, but just the stories, just the things that we tell and how we tell it is important as well. So just like what George says when he say, from Jamaica, it's kind of like that boost, because like, oh, this is unknown territory, we don't know much about Jamaica, right? So when you're giving them these things about, these stories about Jamaican folklore and radiating, like, oh, interesting, because it's something new. They've never heard of this before, right? They don't know what a mongoose is or what. You know, so it's just like.
You know.
So
yeah.
But it's just something that we need to realize that we have that power, right? We have that thing there, that trophy that say, we're from Jamaica, we have this culture.
Good currency.
Yeah, it is.
You know, the parties were good. Like, I mean, it's a great place to like everybody's in the same spot. So like, again, if you use the app and you kind of stalk somebody, as opposed to them being spread out over 2 whole floors of a hotel, they're all now in one space, and you're like, I can go stalk my prey. So hopefully they're standing in line trying to get alcohol. And again, they're very, very generous with the alcohol. That helps loosen you up.
I think I'll insert that, well, my experience is a little different, which is be authentic. So if you are not the type of person that can do your pitch well at a party, I wouldn't stress about it because there are many other opportunities that are presented for you. So a party is one way, and also in currency in Jamaica for sure, but also understand that not everybody is serious about that.
Yeah.
For some people, it's just a fun kind of brand, which is not serious. So it's recognizing who in there is really interested in what's beyond the Jamaica.
You see their reaction, right? You see their reaction, and then you follow up with, the pages or what you're doing, right? Like to show them visuals is very important. Because you say, hey, from Jamaica, what have you done? Right? Like, what are you doing? So that's why you need to show them what you're doing.
Did you find that was a common question?
What we're doing in Jamaica? Somewhat, yes.
Yeah, curious. There was some curiosity about what's the industry like here. A couple of people asked me, like, what stage are we at? And how is it growing and so on.
But I think there's a general curiosity about what everybody's doing. There is a presumption that if you're at Kidscreen, you are doing something. So it was a standard question that I asked people and that other people asked, whether or not they knew where I was from. Okay, so what are you working on? What are you doing? How do you find the festival? And it's a good inroad question because I think, and it's key to Anika's point, it's like talking to people is not always about pitching. And I think I was trying to say earlier that a lot of this is about relationship building. I think it was we got JAMPRO had arranged for us to talk to a producer from South Africa who they had 2 shows on Netflix and they're getting a deal with Disney, and so we had a chance to sit down and talk to them about their experience. And it's particularly also useful. He's a black man in this extremely white space, and so one of the things he says, like his first couple of years coming to conferences, he made very little headway. But as you got to meet more and more people, and as people get to know you, a lot of it is about building a relationship. So it might just be that the thing you're talking to the person about isn't your pitch. It's just like, hey, those are very cool earrings. I like it. Yeah. And people like to be complimented, right? It's not all about the hard sell. A lot of it is about getting to know people.
People do business with who they like.
Yeah, exactly.
I have 3 more questions. One of them is, for the persons who are pitching to teams, how did you strategize finding people to talk to in such a space that's very condensed with people looking for greeting stuff?
It was somewhat easy because the people who were targeting teams were small, so just once you go around telling people, oh, you're targeting teams, most likely somebody hears that. Because when I was at our booth, I was sitting down and somebody came to me and like, you're talking about your show that's focused on teams, right? I'm like, yeah. I was like, oh, BBC's looking for here's my card, you can contact this person. Stuff like that. So because the space is so intimate, people hear and people will say, okay, they're interested in you're doing this.
And you're competing with less people. So.
Exactly. So you're more narrow in terms. You have more tunnel vision as okay. These are the people focusing on teams, right? So we just target them. Email those, focus on those, and that was the main point of me going there because I knew that the kids thing wasn't my IP wasn't what I was targeting.
So a question for all of you: would you recommend going to Kidscreen, and under what circumstances?
I would say definitely. I would say go if you have something that you are fairly confident in, something that you've thought about enough, that you've worked on enough, that you've gotten enough feedback on. It helps if it's an IP or an idea for a story that you've been working on for a while, you've gotten feedback like from your friends that you've been developing for a while, have good visuals. It's definitely good to make the contacts, and it's good to go frequently because, like they're saying, you go to MIPCOM, you meet people, you go to Kidscreen, you see the same people. you know, you go to another marketplace, you'll run into the same people.
They want to see you.
They want to see you, and they want to see you also developing. You have to be serious about what you're doing. This isn't something that you're just like, well, I have a little idea. No, you have to be serious to go and step into this huge space, you know, with like big executives from all these companies that we see on television. You know, you really and truly have to have that vision and be ready to step out of your comfort zone. So it's a big decision to make, but I would definitely say if you are serious enough about it, do it.
And know who you want to target before you go. Because you have to have the idea of people you want to work with before you go, so you don't waste your time. You don't want to go there and say, oh, as I say, you want to work with Disney, but Disney is looking for something that you're not doing, right? You're gonna be shooting yourself in the leg, basically. So you have to do your research, find out what the shows that they have out now that are popular, and find out how can you know fit into what they're doing.
Same.
Well, actually, what I would suggest also is you have to, go online, look at what is current, what is there. If you have an IP working on and so on, compare it. I mean, look and see what is there and be honest with yourself and compare it, ask people around. How does it match up against what is out there internationally? Because it don't make sense to go there with something that's mediocre, because you will not get an audience.
But here's the thing, everybody has their own opinion on what you do.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Right? So it's kind of, some people say, oh, change that, and some people say, oh, that's
yeah,
great.
That's another thing. Yeah, you have to be careful.
So it's
not every suggestion that is a good suggestion. But what I'm saying is that you still need to compare. Look at what is out there, so you can make a judgment and be honest with yourself. Because if you know the thing not ready, I mean, you look at it and say, boy, the standard. I need to brush up on the standard, whether it's the illustration or even the writing or the characters and so on. Do it. Don't say when rush ahead and do it. These things take time. It takes time.
Who spoke to that? Sorry to call you. Who spoke to that? Spoke about the 5 pillars, the 5 main aspects.
David Sarway from France.
Yeah. So he basically told us your show or your idea, your story. It's best to stick to 5 major points of the story, 5 major things that you won't change. Right? These 5 things that are important to the show, and if you change it, the whole show basically changes. Right? So once you have those 5, you say, all right, I have these 5. What are the couple 6 that are just...
Everything else is changeable.
Yeah, everything else is changeable. Right? So if somebody says, oh, can this character be a dog instead? Right? Instead of a boy, you're going to say, is this a part of the 5 main things? No, it isn't. So you can change it into a dog. Right? Not going to be anything too serious. Right?
Dog boy.
Yeah, basically. So once you have those 5, if somebody says, oh, change that, oh no, I can't change that, this is the show, this is what it's about, then it just doesn't work out, right?
And I think what I want to add is that to piggyback on George's point about the standard, I guess before I went, I had an impression of what kids TV was looking for, what kids content was. And I think the standard has nothing much to do with the style or the simplicity or the complexity of the character. It's really the integrity of what it is. So there was a show that was being pitched there called Snowcats, and it really was just like blocks of color from Korea and like marker drawing, and that was it. But it was so kind of consistent, and it really presented this world that it really sold itself. And the question was like, why would you go to Kidscreen? I think if you want to learn about, just learn across the board. For example, I stumbled into a session that was about kids who had been displaced. And that doesn't seem like it's the most broad-reaching, but to me that was the best session I went to the whole time, because it looked at Sesame Workshop, how they engineered a show from the beginning to deal with very serious issues. So if you do want to just get a sense of what are people doing, what are people thinking about, how do you even start conceiving a show, I think it's worth it, even if you don't have the content. And for myself, all I had was one piece of artwork. It was a flyer. I had nothing else to, no pitch Bible, no nothing. But that was enough to kind of get me going forward. So I wouldn't be intimidated about going if you don't have enough. I think it's worth just going.
You have to also be confident in the idea that you have. Because, as I said, people have their own ideas or their own takes on it. But you have to be confident that what you have is, you know, is something that you really want to get out there, and it's something that you take criticism, of course, naturally going to improve your thing, but at the same time, you have to stand your ground and be like, you know.
They will smell fear.
Yeah, they smell fear. You know, trust me. So
if you're pitching something and they realize that you're not too sure about it, you will see a reaction.
You have to be sure. You have to be sure. So that's why it's best to go to these things and learn about what is needed, learn about who you need to target, and just sit down and be like, all right, this is my show, and cover your bases. Once you cover your bases, and you be like, all right, I have this, I have that, then it builds up your confidence.
Be true to yourself.
Okay. So last question is, what would you do different next time?
What would I do different? I wish I would have had something animated or something a little bit more developed.
Yeah.
That I could show, because quite a few people came and they wanted like finished episodes and finished like whole seasons of things. But even to have like an animated sample or something that
Even 15 seconds.
yeah, even if it's 15 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever, just something to show them the visual style that you're going for. I think that's what I would want to do differently next time.
Same.
Same.
That would be learning what we're saying before, go the next time, improve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So, next time the person, oh, guess what, don't have a teaser.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
A teaser, I think, is very important.
And for me, like I think now that I've had a better grasp of what people are using both as their pitch deck or their pitch Bibles, I'm like, yeah, okay, that, I mean, I definitely want to improve on that. And I know that the IP I currently am working on need more development. So it's about, you know, doing that, improving that, and going with that.
I think what I would improve is a clear understanding of the business end of my show. So the budget, that was a stickler for me. I under budgeted my show sharply, and so that meant that people didn't take me as seriously, or it didn't lead to the point where you could perhaps start to negotiate something, because it was clear that you had some work to do, or how you, in other words, the person would be thinking, well, you probably need this next step, so they send you to that next step first. The other thing is, I wish I would have spent more time thinking about specifically who to meet and get to know what they are interested in. So for example, I did meet a distributor from France, but they wanted a specific format, so 52 by 11, 52 episodes, 11 minutes long. So I had 26 episodes, 5 minutes long. So if you're meeting that person and you think it's possible you want to work with them, it's best to find out exactly what they show and also know what to ask them. So had I done a little bit more background work with some of these places, I would have found out that, okay, this company has a network in Africa, and so then you could target straight to Africa with your questions, for example.
I wanted to also elaborate on the budget thing that you mentioned. It's not like here in Jamaica, we're so used to being bogged down on everything that we do.
Everybody wants
Like, we're so used to taking so little money for what we do, but there's a...
price PTSD.
We have price PTSD, a very good way of putting it. But there is a basic idea of what things cost internationally. And if you go with your price PTSD, thinking that's going to get you through the door. It does the opposite. People actually look and think, well, you're charging too little, like
Not
maybe
just,
you don't know
not
what
just
you're doing,
something.
you know? Like you really, it literally looks like you don't know what you're doing, exactly. So that is something that is very important, which is also, it's good to go and find out, you know, what people are spending on these things.
It's good to know who's involved.
Exactly.
Rob, producer, you know, all those different roles, you need to know the roles and what you need to do your film or your show. And then you start looking at the budgets for those things. That's why it's good to meet who, like for instance, if you meet a composer, for instance, you can get a budget from them. You can say, all right, how much do you charge? If you're getting a double, you can ask them, how much do you charge?
Right.
So meeting people like that is important.
But I think just to note, because this is about what would we do better, but I think it's also important to note that what we would do better and or differently is based on what we have learned this session around.
Exactly.
And so just to go back to a point that Anika made earlier, there is a way in which it's very important for you to do any broad-based research you can do. But I think one of the best thing you can do is go with a very open mind, knowing that it's like he who knows but knows he doesn't know, he is, I don't know, I think a child, teach him. It's a long time since we learned it, right? Don't want that on. It is important to know you don't know, you know?
Yeah.
And therefore, if you're standing from that position, so you understand yourself, so you know that there are things you don't know, find out what you can, but go with the intention to learn, right?
Just go like a sponge,
And that
right?
is,
Just
it's critical to do that you can get a lot.
One of the things that you're teaching me right now is with, I went back, I think, in some of the cases when you meet another seller, because obviously you're going to meet another seller, I think I should be asking them what their budget is, so that I can get an idea. What's your budget? What's your budget?
Yeah.
What's your budget?
Yeah. Oh no, what's your budget?
You show me that
Yeah, no problem. That was the last question.
Thanks, guys.
Well, before I send these guys off the stage, does anybody have any questions? No? Yeah, I think I pretty much covered it. Yeah, but did you find information useful?
Yes.
Anybody in the room who wants to be an animator or is interested in animation in any way? Yes.
Can I just add one thing that's important? If you guys are creating an IP or a story, create a social media for it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like people need to understand if there's an interest for it. And once you create a social media, you start putting out concept art, and you start putting out ideas, don't be afraid to put out those things, because one, it shows the status, it shows all the stats to say, okay, I have this amount of followers. And once you go to an investor that, okay, people are interested in this, you're actually understanding and putting the marketing into it, and the merchandise and all that stuff.
I think it's also important to copyright your thing
Copyrighted thing as well, yeah. That's
before you put it out there.
Yeah.
Would you create one per project? Or is it like if we have more than one team working on, would you create one social media account per project, or just have them under one umbrella?
One. I put them under
I
one.
mean,
So
depends.
you don't want people to have to be searching.
Depends. If you're creating a universe where all they're connected, you could like a Marvel has one page with one bag of different stories. Or if it's two separate ideas, I would create different social media. Because they're different target markets and they're different ideas.
Yeah.
You know, so,
What is important to do is, I think on top of that, is to have a profile page using LinkedIn. I know generally we don't use LinkedIn, but it seems to be markedly important
For business.
industry. So I created a company profile page and then invited everybody that I met to join it, and that's been really effective.
Okay. I have two questions. The first one was, I know most of you went to MIPCOM first and then went to Kidscreen. Do you think that Kidscreen, for people who went there for the first time, or even your own experience, Kurta, do you think that MIPCOM kind of made you a bit calmer in the atmosphere of Kidscreen, seeing that it's smaller?
yeah. As I said, MIPCOM is 2 shots of coffee and Kidscreen is just a sip of tea. You know?
I can tell you from a perspective of someone who went to Kidscreen first, then MIPCOM, then Kidscreen again.
Yeah.
And the first Kidscreen, it was like, okay, wow, this is pretty massive. You know, you know, and going to MIPCOM was like, whoa.
No, you don't understand.
I
It's
tell you,
ridiculous.
I tell you how bad it is. Like the first day, I remember Dam and Easy and I were like, all right, we're gonna walk through MIPCOM and figure this place out.
Yeah, that's
And
what
we're walking and we're walking and we're walking. And then we reach the wall and we go, finally we reach the end and we looked left and we were like, that was one floor in one building.
Oh dear.
You get to understand what the children of Israel felt like.
No, I give you another thing. George told me that when he came back, he said he was breathing easier than he normally does.
You
My
want
lungs feel wider.
You have to wear comfortable shoes.
Yeah.
When I went to Kidscreen that second time, Kidscreen was extremely easy at that point. It's like, I know this place. It's like, yeah, it's easy.
I was just asking from the perspective of people who are planning to go to Kidscreen or go to MIPCOM, and then I remember Corey said, "Oh, Kidscreen is small," and then Tanya said, "Compared."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to know, because when you go and you feel like that fish out of water, is it easier, like having experienced the massiveness that was MIPCOM and
Definitely.
I feel like with Kidscreen, you can find somebody you want to find. Like if when they go on the app and you see somebody's face and you go, okay, I'm gonna look for this person tomorrow.
yeah.
Chances are
You'll find
MIPCOM you will not.
with MIPCOM,
They'll have to give you a code and say, meet me at 325.7 booth at this location. I'm like, what?
you're not going to nobody at MIPCOM.
Yeah.
There was an African guy, sorry to cut you. There was an African guy that when I went to MIPCOM, I was looking for that guy from the beginning of MIPCOM.
Oh, yeah.
And I literally didn't see him until we were leaving MIPCOM. And I just saw him and I go, wait, that guy looked like the guy that I saw.
You better
And
catch
I was
it.
like, it's like John. And I was like, been looking for you like whole
The
MIPCOM.
whole time.
Where have you
Yeah, and
been,
then
man?
also because with Kidscreen you have the massive dining room, you have lunch in there, you have breakfast in there, and everybody's there. You know you walk in and it's very easy to see people because it's a very it's a wide open
open,
space. It's a so in terms of that you don't have that at MIPCOM. At MIPCOM it's just like everybody's running around like mad ants. Just,
Like a city itself.
It's like New York. It's like
Oh
New
dear.
York in there.
Yeah.
No, wait. I come up with the best analogy. The Kidscreen is like you got to talk about that.
Oh.
MIPCOM is Sawgrass.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty much.
Right?
Yes.
And one more final question. I thought of it while we were speaking. In terms of business practices, because I believe it was George, you said don't write anything on a business card in front of the Japanese.
Yeah.
Make sure you give them like this.
Yeah,
there's
the,
certain
the
cultural
different
things
cultural
that you need to know.
practices.
Right.
Even Onika saying that her market is France, and based on what I know about French culture, I can understand why her market would be France. But in terms of that's the sort of research that you think that we should be focusing on in terms of.
It's part of it. It's part of it.
You learn it there.
No, I mean in terms of planning for how you're going to
Come on,
network,
yeah.
so you don't
Try and find
accidentally
out.
insult
It's
anybody.
something that you eventually you should do. It's not necessarily like your main focus, but it's one of those things that if you're going to be smart about it, just it's good to know.
Because remember, your format is based. Because remember, if your format is this, like 52, 11 minutes, the budget is going to be this amount, right? It's going. People are going to say, all right, it's these amount of episodes, this minutes long. That's expensive, right? Like you have to understand that, and that's why it comes down to budgeting as well. Those things come in hand because they're going to want to see that you understand. This is how much it costs, and this is how long it should take, right? If they see you don't understand, then I'm like, this guy not serious. This person not serious. So.
And it looks like you have to go to them and experience it to know certain things. For example, when you're about Disney, you doing research beforehand, you're not going to find that out.
Exactly.
It's somebody that's there that's going to go, oh yeah, no, you have to have an agent in California.
Yeah.
Or they're going to tell you, come on through.
Yeah. That's why the 30 minutes with and stuff like that was so important and so informative because they told you exactly what they're looking for and they wouldn't. Sometimes you don't see that on the website, right? They're there to give you that information, right? They're there to say, all right, boom, this is what we're looking for. Everybody's like, all right, what? Looking for this? All right, everybody start writing down. What's the email? Da 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 da. Then now give you a business card. Some of them don't have a business card. Like, oh, I don't have any business card, so write this down. All right, this is
So what
serious.
would you not plan?
You don't video them either.
Just as important that they tell you what they don't want. want.
Exactly, that too.
I think as students and looking to prepare yourself for something like this, one of the things I would say to you is it can seem pretty inaccessible, but you have two cohorts of boss program, and you have that's maybe what 18 people, 16 people or more, and some of them are looking for IP. One of your key strategies might be to get to network with these local studios, and then you can join forces in attending Kidscreen, so that you partner with someone who has had the experience, and so you don't have to kind of go and learn on your own. You have this collective knowledge here that you can tap into.
Yeah. Also, just a shameless plug. One of the things that JANN offers to the members, like if we go to these markets or whenever we go to these markets, if you have IP that you want, to be pushed or promoted, we can carry that IP with us and have those meetings on your behalf and that sort of thing. Because obviously not everybody can go to Kidscreen, it's not the cheapest thing in the world. But if there's somebody that can go and represent your IP and say, hey, like for example, as George said, somebody might say, hey, we're looking for something with cows, and you go, oh well, there is this one who has this thing. So bear that in mind.
Teamwork made the dream work.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. You guys, I think this turned out way better than I expected.
Good, it's good.
Well done. Alright, so what I want to do is
It's uncomfortable.
So, next upcoming events, the main one right now is the character design competition.
I'm waiting till you all get seated to turn off the lights.
Currently on the way. The character design competition is based on a reggae theme, and it started in Reggae Month. And basically, you have to design a character. Let me just click on this so we can see some of the info. So there's a cash prize of $25,000 and a life-size banner of your character, and the entry fee is $500. Pretty much. The deadline has been extended to March 20. Scroll up to the details. Right, so pretty much what we require of the artist is, oh, you guys are not seeing what I have on my screen. You're obviously thinking that you're seeing what I have on my screen. So every time I switch between the slide, it does this. There it is. Okay, great. Right. So the participant must be 18 years and over. The character must be reggae inspired. So we require you to do a full figure character, so from head to toe, and a full turnaround. So that's front, 3/4, side, angle, costume, that sort of thing. And it's a 2D digital painting competition, so it's not 3D, not this time around. What else is there?
Backstory.
What's that? I didn't hear you.
Backstory.
Oh yes, you have to have a character brief. So a character brief is simple. Basically, you're just telling us what's the name of the character and what does this character do? What's the character's backstory? Is it Banana Man? Why is he Banana Man? What does Banana Man do? Does he shoot bananas out of his gun, or what is the case? Right? No pornography. So yeah, so no nipples, anything like that stuff. And we want no or a very minimalistic background for the character. So if you rather see the character just on a plain background with their description, or a very minimalistic background. So no mountain landscapes or anything that's going to distract from the character. And essentially when you look through the rules, you can find rules here on Facebook. there is, well, we want you to do two things. One is there's a submission form. Once you created your character, you fill out that submission form and you can submit the images in that submission form, as well as posting it on our Facebook. And the posting it on Facebook is just so people can see ahead of time what kind of character designs are going on, and you know, basically root for you guys. There's the banking information.
Get some
for those who
fun.
want to pay the $500 through the bank, or you can always contact us. There's lots of time left. March 20th, as I said, and we are also, if you follow the group, we post tutorials to, you know, character design tutorials. So if you're having any trouble trying to figure out, all right, what kind of character am I going to design, or how should I start approaching this, you can always check out those tutorials. And as I said, Kamal Manford is building a tutorial for us as well. He was going to show us today like what he was working on, but he had to go to the doctor, so that's not happening. But you can contact us for more information at info@animationjamaica.com if you're interested, or just come to the Facebook group, get some more info on the Facebook page.
I have, sorry to cut you stuff, but on my YouTube page, if it helps, I do have videos on character design.
Okay, great.
So like I can
Definitely
share that.
those.
Yeah, I can share that.
I'll definitely share those. And when you're making the post on our Facebook group, just put the hashtag JANReggaeMon. It helps us to find the artwork easier.
Does Instagram works as well?
Pardon?
Instagram.
The challenge with Instagram is that with the Facebook group, it's easy for us to just go into one place and, you know, scroll through the images, versus the Instagram where we'd have to go, you know, I mean, there is a hashtag, so you
Yeah,
could.
but also with Facebook, we have more, we can see the full picture. With Instagram, you're limited to whatever.
The
You can't
composition.
zoom, you can't do any of that.
Yeah,
Check
because
out
remember it's a
Facebook.
turnaround, so chances are your image is going to be
Tiny.
walk one again.
I guess consider that the younger person's gravitate towards Instagram more.
Right.
Because I've been looking for Instagram people and I realized that we got an Instagram.
We do have an
Yes.
Instagram page, and that's one of the reasons why I was saying that the Instagram is tricky. Like, I would allow it, but that's another thing. It's like, if, for example, you put up your image and you put hashtag JANReggaeMon, but then your page is privated, I will not see your artwork.
No, we
And-
are going to.
And that's the same, and that's the same thing. Just like you're saying, you didn't realize you had an Instagram page. Instagram, I find, is not as searchable as a Facebook. You know, unless you're very, very public and open.
So why don't
It's
you,
something we could consider.
why don't you use both? Because when you post on
Yeah.
Instagram, you can automatically share it to Facebook.
We could do that. We could
So-
do that.
Yeah.
We can do that. We can do that.
So you could use
But I know we
Facebook
had,
for
we
that.
had a challenge the last time where we did it on show. And there were some people who said they submitted, but we're like, we can't find your stuff, we don't see your stuff. You know, and it was a case where their Instagram was private, so you don't see no picture show. Whatever, you know, that was a challenge. But we can do it. I guess we can just inform people, you're gonna have to make your thing public so that we can find your work. What's that?
They could send it to the DM to be posted.
The
on
GM?
page. Yeah.
Oh. Sure. Alright, as for other upcoming events. Alright, so this big picture here is for Lignum Vita Film Festival. I think submissions are still open. They have not given me an exact date as to the end of submission, but I know the end of submissions is sometime in March. This is a film festival that happens in Mandeville, right? I think this would be their 11th year, and they have an animation category.
Remember, it's a, to mention it's an NCU.
Right, it's at Northern Caribbean University, NCU. Happens every year around April. The date of the festival is April 5. So even if you're not submitting a film, their entry fee is $500 as well, and you'd have to pay to their bank accounts. If you're not submitting, I would strongly recommend going and supporting the other animators that are there. I believe some UTech animators have submitted. So if you want to go and show them support is always great. I find that a lot of times we tend not to support our industry a lot. And it really is useful and helpful to, you know, be their numbers and show support. It's one of those things where, like I always tell this story, how back in the day when people were much more interested in investing in animation because it was new and they were curious, one of the things that they always said was they're not so sure that Jamaicans are into animation. And I was like, why would you say that? And they go, well, I went to the Lake White Film Festival, and I went to the Gatfest Film Festival, and I went to this thing, and I don't see any animation. Are people really animating in Jamaica? Well, you know, so their concern is like, is there really anything to invest in?
Seriously.
And it's like, worse, if you have like a one animation there, and then nobody else is showing up to support the animation, they also look at that as, are people interested in animation? Because I don't see people coming to watch the animation. Though, you know, those things do matter. So we're also having a writing workshop coming up soon. Gatfest Film Festival is in June. Their submission is closed, so if you have an animation to submit to Gatfest, unfortunately it's too late. But again, support them. It's the biggest film festival in Jamaica. I think they run for like 2 weeks, about 10 nights, and they have different nights because they get sponsored by different embassies. So they have Jamaica night, they have Japanese night, Korean night, Colombian night, so on and so forth. So you get to watch a lot of films. A lot of them are sponsored. The embassy sponsor Palace Amusement, so you actually get to go to the theaters and watch these films from all over the world. And I think they have 2 Jamaica nights, and then they have an award ceremony. And that's June. The dates we can send out an email. I believe we collected the emails when we came in, I think. There's also Jamaica Expo. You guys are aware of Jamaica Expo. It's not an animation event, but in talking to JAMPRO, they do want to push a lot more of the digital creative space. So it's a space that I would definitely recommend that if you are an illustrator, a background designer, a mobile app developer, an animator, whatever the case is, I would say go to Jamaica Expo and walk with your business card. A lot of businesses there want to find animators, and I'm not aware animators exist or don't know where to find them, so it's a good opportunity. It's not an animation event, but for those of you who are actual, commercial animators or professional animators, you'll know that a lot of times your bread and butter comes from commercials, from companies out here. And of course, there's the YEDAI apprenticeship program, which begins when again? August? Tentatively it begins in August. So for those who don't know, I don't know if you want to say it or you want me to tell you about it. All right, sure, no problem. So the apprenticeship program is essentially, it's being put on by YEDAI, and they're going to be taking in, I don't want to use the word interns, but students and other animation practitioners into a studio space to work on an actual production, right? And this is going to be guided by an instructor who is a professional in the animation industry. And these instructors might come from Canada or India or wherever the case is. But essentially it's, I don't want to use the word simulation of a live production, so because it's going to be an actual production that you're working on, but it's an opportunity to fill that gap between what you learn at school and how you operate in an actual studio, right? So something that I would say to you, really, really look out for, especially if you're in final year, it's something that you need to look out for, because when school is finished, I think it's something that you need to jump on. In fact, even if school isn't finished, if you're in second year, if you're in first year, jump on it and get that experience, so you're ahead of the game. When you leave school and you have this experience that is invaluable and hard to get, jump on that opportunity. Do we need to run out of the room? Because I see you looking ominously.
I just want to participate.
Oh, okay. All right, no problem. Just look at some of our other calendar events. So essentially we planned out some stuff for the year, starting with the character design competition. Everything is anchored on the character design competition. Essentially what we're doing with these workshops and competitions is kind of mimicking the animation pipeline. Usually, for those who don't know what the animation pipeline is, simply put, you start with an idea, you have a script, you design some characters, you design a storyboard, an animatic, and so on and so forth until you come to a finished product. We're starting with character design because, it's the most exciting and the most sexy way to start. You design a character and people get inspired, because that was one of the things that we saw with the first character design competition that we had. And it's also why we asked you to give a character brief. Because when writers saw the characters, writers were just like, ooh, I love that character. Like, I have ideas for this character already, right? And we want to basically increase the amount of stories that we tell, because like Corey was saying, we have a lot of stories to tell, and the stories are different, right? And we need to develop them. We need to get them to a point where when we go to a Kidscreen and we're pitching them, people go, whoa, I really want to see that, right? So after the character design competition, we're going to be inviting those creatives who created the designs to the writing competition. The writers are going to be there. It's going to be a networking experience, and we'll have an instructor who's going to basically be helping these writers and character designers come together and develop the story around these characters. This can lead to, a pilot script being written at the end of this workshop. Afterwards, we'll have, how we have it here, it may change since the character design competition got pushed on, but for now we'll work with this. So at the end of April, we're looking at having a storyboard competition, which is going to be using the exact same story that you came up with from the writing workshop, same characters, and developing storyboards for those. This is not to say that if you weren't in the character design competition, you can't be in the storyboard competition. If you find out later down that, oh, there's a storyboard competition, you can still show up and say, hey, I want to be a part of this storyboard competition and present a storyboard, right? And then, of course, afterwards, we'll have an animatic workshop, which is basically how do you take these storyboards now and get them to a point where, for those who don't know what an animatic is, it's in between an animation and a storyboard. So it's your storyboard with your, basic characters, and you're essentially creating like a slideshow or a video of them. You're adding audio so that you can actually hear the talking and see that. I wonder if I have time to show one. Maybe not. But essentially, it helps you to figure out how long your animation is going to be. It helps you figure out what's wrong with your visual storytelling. You might watch the animatic and go, this isn't quite working for me, or there's something confusing about this shot, and you'll know exactly what to change and replace, so that you're not wasting time during animation finding out that you've made a mistake and have to go back and reanimate it. Right? After which, we have a pitch Bible workshop, and then, as you can see, we kind of start over again halfway in the year. The aim at the end of all of this is that we are hoping that we would have taught people how to work together to produce content, as well as produce artifacts that can go directly into Kidscreen, right? Because one of the things that I want to see more of at Kidscreen is more local content. I can tell you, in the world, people are hungry to show their stuff off. If right now I get up and I decide that I'm going to go on Film Freeway and put out a Kevin Jackson animation festival, most likely, not many locals are going to enter, but I'm going to get a flood of persons from overseas entering, because these people just want to win an award somewhere so that they can say they won an award. We need more locals in these things, right? Not just even for the awards, but just so that people can see, because Kingston is a huge opportunity. For those of you who can't afford to go to a Kidscreen, it's still a big opportunity for you to meet major players from the industry overseas, because they come here. And you want, not only do you want your stuff in the competition so that they see it, but you want to be able to have something to pitch to these people while you are here, and make that big deal here instead of having to spend your money to go overseas to do the exact same thing. And go ahead.
So 2 points, just in case Kevin didn't say it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say what Mr. Jackson forgot to say.
Wait a minute. JANN is going to have our own catalog to advertise these different productions. So when it's got to the Pitch Bible section, you'll create a poster for your productions, and all of that will go in a JANN catalog. Now, to add to that, Kevin had said, utilize Kingston because it's local, yes, but JANN is now working on opportunities to represent you at these international festivals. So if you can't go you can make sure you're in the catalog. And in order to be in the catalog, you need to get to the pitch Bible. You start seeing where we're going, right?
Yeah.
So
So we're just going to zoom in on Chevy. Say it again.
You need to get your work to a certain point so you can make it into the JANN catalog. A representative from JANN will then go to these international festivals and pitch on your behalf if it is that you're not able to attend yourself.
Okay.
So it's all connected, and it's just one big developmental program. Developing ourselves as creatives, because one of the things that we want to drill into people's head, JANN is not just for animators. Right? JANN is for anybody who contributes to the end product of animation. So if you're a writer, if you're an actor, one of the things that we want to do in the future, and when I say future, I'm hoping for 2021. I'm hoping we can find the funding to bring down a Chris Summers or I don't remember the name of the other guy, but basically voice actors, so that actors can learn how to do voice acting for animation. Huh?
That's what you're thinking.
Who's Bradley Baker?
Bradley Baker.
Is
He's the guy that does all of the animal noises and all of everything.
Oh, no, I was thinking of the Asian guy who was in the Robin Williams Peter Pan back in the day.
Okay.
And he's like in everything. And he was Stinger in Avatar. Yes.
Dante?
Yes, Dante. Yeah, he actually messaged me back the other day and gave me his agent's email address to have some conversation. But we want to make sure that people know that animation is a collaborative process. It's not a one-man thing. And when we say collaborative process, it's not just the animators. The writers are extremely important. Right? Without a good story, you don't have anything.
And
right? Music is really important. Everything is really important. So we don't have anything music-based yet. We're just kind of focusing on the type of stuff that's what's that? Charger. Oh, charger. All right, give me a second. Yeah, so we're just focusing on the stuff that goes directly into Kidscreen, and also the stuff that pretty much help you to pitch your project. All of these things can help you to pitch your project. If you have a good script, there are lots of script writing competitions, right? That can lead to money, can lead to an opportunity, can lead to, meeting an exec. Same thing with a character design, same thing with an animatic, etc. Anyway, let me blow past this.
There's no actual finished animation short competition?
That comes later on, but because we know that it was intended originally, but one of the things that we couldn't solve at the time of coming up with this calendar was a space where these animators would go to work on animation.
But that is impressive. Me too.
Because one of the challenges that we always face, right, when we used to ask persons, why aren't you animating? Why aren't you animating? And the answer was always the same. I don't have the hardware. I don't have the software. So yes, I learned it at school, but when I go home, I can't do anything. And that's a big problem. I myself have worked with other animators, and in working with other animators, the excuse is very similar. Why haven't I gotten a deliverable yet? Boy, my computer old, it died. I have to get a new hard drive. Boy, XY, the software, blah, blah, blah. In some cases, I have to buy the software and give it to them so that they can work along with me. And it's a challenge. So we didn't have it there, especially because you saw how long it took to do Agri, right? They definitely